Hi, this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments, and I am bringing you some more for our Disney layouts collection. This is actually starting day 2, believe it or not. Since we started doing those layouts back in January, I've only gotten through what we did as we arrived to Disneyland and what we did the first day we were there. So moving on, we're on day 2 and starting day 2, which is super fun because we spent day 2 in Disney, California. So until about the early afternoon, or sorry, like late afternoon, everything we're going to do for the next few sessions with Disney is going to be from Disney, California, which is super fun. And the first things that we did in the park were very, very fun and had a lot to do with the Cars area, like Lightning McQueen and all of those characters. So if you have a young man or young lady in your life who really enjoys those, these are going to be some fun layouts, and I think you'll enjoy them. Today's is going to mainly focus on combining and making a special border, and should be really fun. As you can see, I've got my Disney album so far right here. I think that's going to be all we're going to put in this cover set. That's almost 2 full packs of pages, and that's about all I put in an album anymore. I used to do like 45 pages, and those albums got really, really heavy and really, really thick. So anyway, I just wanted to draw your attention to that, along with my new favorite thing, and that's this carousel of Border Maker cartridges from Stamp and Storage. If you don't have one of these yet and you have a cube system for storing your supplies, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. It stores up to 80 of these guys. So now I have all kinds of room in my storage back here. See all those holes? Those go all the way down to the bottom. I have all kinds of space. There you go. That's a better view. Anyway, so without delay, let's check out what's in my workspace. Okay, here's my desktop for today, and we are going to, as I mentioned before, go ahead and get started with book number 2 of the Disney experience at Thanksgiving. I have 2 punches out today we're going to play with. One is the Cityscape punch from a while back, and I don't remember what the exact name of this one is. I just always call it Cityscape because it looks like an urban big city sprawl. And then this one is and I didn't write it on here either. I apologize. I'm so sorry. But this is the one of the mountain punches that we have had. We've had 2 of those come out over the last 2 or 3, maybe 4 years. And I liked this one because it kind of matches a little, it's similar, sort of similar to this laser cut border, which I'm going to use today. This laser cut border and these 2 pages here come from the automobile collection. So if you have that, it was part of the trains and planes and automobiles, and anyway, I just really loved the way this flows from kind of mountains and trees to agriculture to more trees of a different variety, to a more urban setting on this side. And we're going to use our punches here to add to this so that we can use this 1 laser border on a 2-page layout. I also have a piece of dark green cardstock and some Kelly green cardstock out here, which we may end up using. I'm not really sure exactly how this is going to come together. This is just an idea in my head, so follow along and let's see how we do, okay? So the pictures we're dealing with today are from the very beginning of our second day at Disney. And if you know much about Disneyland at Christmas, then you know that at Disneyland and at Disney World, they create life-size gingerbread houses. So that's what this was a picture of. It was in I'm trying to remember, and now the hotel name has escaped me, but it's the California. Nope, it's not coming. I'll have to find out and put it in the comments and the description for you in case you're interested. But this beautiful hotel is one of the newest built there at Disneyland in California. And that's where we found the life-size gingerbread house, which was really cool. And we sort of found it not really by accident, but we weren't really looking for the gingerbread house. It just happened to be in the middle of this hotel while we were kind of cutting through the hotel, because the hotel we were staying at was located a little bit more, slightly more adjacent to the park than this particular hotel. This particular hotel has an area where you can walk right into the park. And because we were staying at a Disneyland hotel, we got to go in a half hour early. So since we were going into California Adventure, we cut through this hotel to get into the park. And from there, this is the security line that we stood in at the beginning. This is the first ride we went on was Soarin', because it was the first one we encountered as we walked in to the park. So here we all are sitting, waiting for the ride to start. Super fun. Anyway, these are the photos we're going to do today, just really quick, since we already kind of did the Soarin' layout last time, because that was the main, or that was, those were the fun photos that my husband had taken of the entrance to that ride and everything. So I'm not going to do 2 more layouts on those kinds of pictures because we already have those. And there's a lot more to Disneyland, so I'm just not going to worry about it. But these are the pictures we're going to do today. We're going to trim them up, so never you fear, but they are going to, I'm hoping they're all going to fit on these 2 pages by the time we are done. All right, so first things first, I'm going to set my Kelly Green papers aside here for a second. And so, you know, I'm working on black pages for this album because I just really like the way the colors pop off of those pages. So I'm just going to set my pages up there. We'll get to those when we're ready to do the full, or to put the layouts in the album. But for now, I'm going to grab my trimmer and do some punching and some trimming before we get too far along here. Okay, so just scooting those out of the way just a little. I was looking for a green cardstock that might complement or match this kind of olive cardstock that this die cut, or this laser cut border is made with, and I didn't have any on hand, so I just decided to go with the dark green. I love the dark green. It's such a rich hunter colored green that complements a lot of different shades. So I decided to just go with that, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a complementary border to this that we're going to cut in half. We're going to cut both of them in half. So let me show you what we're going to do. So first off, we're going to go ahead and cut our mountains. We're going to cut punch mountains 3 times. We are going to, if you've not used a Creative Memories punch before, let me just give you a quick tutorial. There are marks on the front right here that indicate where to feed your paper, depending on if you're going from left to right or right to left. And these wings back here have the punched design on them in blue with a little shoulder behind them. The reason is because you take your paper and you feed it in, and you place the edge of your paper at one of those marks, either on the left, or if you're headed the other direction, then you put the edge of your paper, the right edge of your paper at this mark over here on this side. Push it all the way to the back, to the shoulder back here, and then punch. And then you slide your paper through until it matches the design on this side, and you punch again. However, I am doing mine just a tiny bit different. So I am going to flip over my mountains and punch it again. So I'm going to flip it this way and punch from this side. Now, if you've not done this before, Post-it notes are your friend, but let me just show you the calamity of doing this without doing it the way I'm going to show you. Because when you push it in here and all the way to the back, to the shoulder, what happens? You can't see where this punched design starts or stops, and you're not sure where it belongs. So just grab yourself a nice Post-it note. Doesn't have to be a huge one like this. It could just be a smaller one. The important thing is you're going to line up this corner right here with the edge of the cut from the first punch. And the reason that that's important is because that is what you're going to line up. You're going to line up this edge of this Post-it note with the mark on the front of your punch, your tool. And then you get facing mountains, which is always a fun thing. Okay, then I'm going to flip it the other way and we're going to punch it one more time. So I'm going to move my Post-it note to this side. And once again, line it up with the mark on the left, pushing it all the way back to the back of the shoulder, lining my Post-it note up with this mark over here, and now I have some coolness to my extra border that's going to go there. Okay. Now, notice that this border is a little bit wider than 6 inches. If I have things falling on me, that's not good. Okay, I'm going to just set those up there so they don't keep falling down. All right, so let's measure this from the 10-inch mark. I just want to see how wide this is. Note that these 3 are going to be 7 1/4 roughly inches wide. And I really only need it to fill 6 inches. So that means I'm going to need to trim it. So that means that I'm going to probably flip it this way to accomplish what I want it to do. But that's okay. Never you fear. So first thing I'm going to do is take my laser border, compare it to my punch that I used for the mountains, and see where they both meet at the top. Okay, then I'm going to measure how high that is so that I know how deep or where to trim my paper here. So it looks like I'm at 1 inch, a little bit more than 1 3/4 inches. So let's just go with that. We'll go with 1 3/4 inches. So I'm just going to put this in my trimmer up to 1 3/4 inches, which I can measure on the right hand side, and I'm just going to trim that off for right now. And I clearly didn't push far enough or hard enough. There we go. Okay, so there's my extra mountains. Now we're going to do the same thing with the green paper, and we're going to use our Cityscape, and we're going to put it in here. We're going to punch it once, we're going to flip it, punch it again. So there's one. I'm going to use my Post-it note. Oop, we're going to flip it first. Add my Post-it note. When you put your Post-it note on here, it's important to make sure that it is as level as possible, as straight as possible, because you want this edge to be straight. I only mention that because I was starting to go crooked, so there we go. So there's our next one. Now we're going to flip it back the other direction. Put our Post-it note back on here. Oops. See, there again, my Post-it note's a little bit wonky. You just want that line to be as straight as you can so that you are not starting your next punch in the wrong place. See, you know if you start it in the wrong place or a little bit off because you end up with these little tiny pieces. All right. Now that's done, and we're going to go ahead and trim this to the same height. So we're going up here to, so that the top of the city towers is at 1 3/4 inches. Okay, so not the edge of my green paper, but the edge of the punched space is at 1 3/4. All right, now we're done with our punches, so you can set those aside for a second. And let me go ahead and just grab, oh, I take that back. We are not quite done, but there is one little thing that I may do, but I'll wait till we get there. So don't put your punches too far away. You might want them again. All right. Also not putting my trimmer too far away because we're going to need that in a second again. All right, so let's check out our Cityscape and see how far that one measures out. Yeah, so this one goes all the way to 7 1/4 too, which is fine. We only need 6 inches, so we're going to decide which 6 inches are our favorite. And right now I'm just going to go ahead and trim off the extra piece on both of these, and then we will figure it out from there. Okay, so that's just extra. So on the mountains, you'll notice there is a significant amount of space right here that it doesn't have a punched area. So I think what I'm going to do is try to measure 6 inches out. Yeah, I'm still going to be trimming off a significant amount of that punched space. It is what it is. Okay, so we only need 6 inches, so we're going to, I'm adjusting this over just a tad and cutting off everything beyond 6 inches. And because I moved it over just a little, I'm just cutting off just a sliver on the other side as well. Okay, so this mountain is going to end up going here, but I'm going to need to make a little bit of adjustments to that so that that works. All right, now this little cityscape, use your precision point scissors, and we're going to just do some quick modifications to the cityscape, because this tower specifically is very specific, very noticeably different than the rest of the cityscape. And you don't need 3 of them in your cityscape. So we're going to trim this one off on this end, and then we will only have the one, which is fine. I'm going to go in here and tidy this up. This is where I tore off that little extra bit so that I have a clean line there. I'm going to adjust the top of this tower so that it looks different from the one next door to it, slightly. And yeah, I think that will work. So we're just going to come in here to our 6-inch mark. The Cityscape one is actually a little bit easier to adapt because of the fact that we have a straight line at the end here. So we can add this in and it matches fairly easily. Okay. I'm also going to take my laser border and I'm going to cut that at 6 inches. So I'm flipping it so that I have the smooth edge up against the shoulder. Measuring it out to my 6-inch mark on my tab right here. If you don't have a tab, I highly encourage you to make one for yourself and stick it on there if you're using the 12-inch trimmer. Now I have 6 inches for one side of my layout and 6 inches for the other side of my layout, which is good. Still not putting my trimmer away because I'm going to need to trim up some of my photos in just a moment here. But first of all, we've got our borders the way we want them. Now, these papers I'm using as my base, you'll recognize the fact that these have a bit of a fast to fab quality about them. They are from the automobile collection. They have trees on the back, which is awesome, but I really liked this side for the fact that I love the sky up here, and it just said road trip to me. And since we start off our day on day 2 at Disney, in the Disney California, or the California Adventure, which if you've been to California Adventure, you know that this is where Cars Land is and various other things. So it's kind of the land of Lightning McQueen and all of his buddies. And I don't know, it just really spoke to me. So what I'm going to do over here on this side to bring that down to here, just going to mark that a little with my scissors and then do some innovative cutting to change the tree line a little. Just so that it matches where it meets that punch, the line of the punch. All right, now I'm using my repositionable adhesive because I've got holes in this punch and I don't want to have to be super duper careful and have it take me an hour because I'm trying to be so precise. Because that takes all the fun out of scrapbooking when it takes forever to see your ideas. All right, so I may put an embellishment over that seam right there, that's right in the middle, but we'll wait till we get there. And let's see, let's put this one on this side. If you have this paper pack and you're using this to I am simply lining this up with the horizon line where the sky starts. So the base of my border is going right where that division of the paper is, right here. All right. So we're going to just line this up like so. And it just sort of continues the cityscape across. In my mind, it might not look like that to you, but that's my intention. All right. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut some cardstock to be kind of a frame for this area right here. So let's measure and see how much space we have to work with here. So this is 8 3/4 of an inch, roughly. 8 3/4 of an inch. So if we want about 1/4 of an inch on either side, that means that I need a rectangle that's going to be 8 1/4 by 11 1/2. So 8 1/4 by 11 1/2, and I need 2 of those. So that's where my Kelly green paper comes in, because I don't have enough dark green to put on here, and I want both sides to match. So I'm going to go ahead, because this is literally my last sheet of dark green paper. I've ordered some more, but it's not here yet, so I'm just working with what I've got. So we want 8 1/4. So I moved the arm out on my trimmer to accommodate the larger measurements. Cutting 8 1/4 by 11 1/2, we said, which basically means we're cutting a 1/2 inch off, which is easier to measure down here. We'll just measure a 1/2 inch and cut that off, because we know our paper is 11 1/2. So let me just make sure that's what I want. That's going to work beautifully. I wish it was the same color green, but that's the breaks. All right, so I'm going to cut another piece that is the same. So we're going to go 8 1/4. And then turn it and just cut a 1/2 inch off, which again, that 1/2 inch mark is the very beginning of the grid on the right hand side. That's a 1/2 inch. So we're just going to cut that 1/2 inch off. Now we've got our 2 areas for our photos to be mounted. And I could have just mounted them straight to the paper, of course, but I just wanted to add a little bit more color to this. Now comes the fun part, and you know that I am math challenged, so I'm not going to try to give you measurements for all of this, but I am going to try to accommodate all of these photos. So this photo is going to get trimmed and go here. These photos are going to become a collage, and this photo is going to go down here. The rest of these are for the next page. So I'm just going to kind of stick them under here for a minute while I work with these photos. All right, so first of all, let's put the collage together, because it's going to affect the size that I need to cut these other photos. So when I'm lining up my photos for a collage, I try to find similar elements in the photo. In this case, I'm going to mainly look at the ceiling because that's what's going to show in this other photo the most. And I'm going to try to line up elements in the ceiling that are right along the edge of my photo. So right here you can see there's a light, a pendant light that's hanging down from those rafters or those eaves. So I'm just going to try to measure or try to match that, try to match these other beams together as much as I can so that I get a more complete picture of what the hotel grandeur looked like. Okay, not everything matches up, as you can see. When you put a collage together, it doesn't always work exactly, but that's what I'm going for. So I'm going to just put a little repositionable adhesive on the back and once again come in here and line up the best I can. Line up those features so that when we look at this we can go, oh, look at that, that's so cool. That's what the hotel looked like. Now I'm going to trim off the bottom here to make it level so that it's level, but also so that it's not distracting that I'm, or not super obvious that I have put those photos together, because they didn't go together exact. They never really ever do. So, and I'm going to do the same thing on this edge, just to kind of square it up a bit. All right. So this photo is going to go down here in this corner, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere it, but I'm going to use my repositionable adhesive just in case I need to adjust it, because you just never know when you're making a collage kind of like this. So I'm going to just give it only about 1/8 of an inch border, mostly because I'm not sure, but I think I'm going to need a bit more space for these other photos. These two are going to overlap a bit, or I could trim. I think I'm going to trim the gingerbread house up somewhat. We're just going to take 3/4 of an inch off of this because we don't need it. And it will interfere less with the other photos if it is cut down. Okay, so that one's going to go right here. Again, using some repositionable adhesive just in case I need to move these around. Because you just never know. I may change my mind. Okay, so just going to go ahead and stick those down. Then this photo over here, we don't necessarily need all of the top part, but I don't want to cut my husband off down here at the bottom. So I'm going to trim roughly 3/8 of an inch off of the top, and I'm going to trim, how much is that I need to trim? About 5/8 off of the side. So we're going to go roughly 3/8 of an inch off the top, so we can still see Downtown Disney, and we're going to go 5/8 of an inch off the side, and that picture is still a little wide, so I need roughly another 1/8 of an inch over here. Trial and error, right? Trial and error, and it's also a little long still. So, but I'm happy with this measurement. It's a little close maybe. I just need another 1/8 of an inch off. So I think my sweet hubby's going to get a little bit of a beard trim so that I don't have to take the sign at the top. But I want those measurements to match as much as I can. Okay, so that'll work. I want my outer border to be as much the same as possible. It'd be great if the inner border matched and was the same also, but sometimes it's just too hard to make that happen. So, you know, we do what we can do. All right, so this picture up here is going to be relatively tiny, and that's okay. We are going to just sneak in this cool Mickey that I found, one of my kids found. So I need to trim that roughly right about there. Okay, so I'm just eyeballing. I'm really eyeballing this. But I think that that will work. It's a little high, actually. I need to trim just a smidgen off. Just a smidgen off. Try to keep it straight. Try to keep it straight, Kimberly. So that's going to go right in there. And some portion, I think it's this picture, is not straight, but that's okay. I think I'm okay with that. So I'm going to focus on my borders that are going around the edge, try to make them match. And then that will go right in there. Now, what we may add to this page is some kind of a journal box, which will probably go in this area because I want to cover that seam. There's not a lot that I care about seeing in this space right here, and it will give us a place to journal rather than writing on the sky up here, which is an option. We could do that, or we could write here on the dark green as well. Because you always want to make sure that you are journaling. Don't ever skip that part. Even if you don't have a lot to say, you should still write down the place you were, or a funny line that you remember someone saying, or something like that. Okay? All right, so we're just going to center this in our space. And if you cut it correctly, you should have roughly the same dimensions all the way around. I have a little bit of a wider gap from the top and bottom versus the sides, but that's okay. I am okay with that. All right, so there's the first page without our embellishments, of course. Let's work on the right side of the page. All right, so I've got these pictures, quite a few of them. We're going to, again, be cutting them down, but just so you have an idea of how they're going to lay out. I love this. This was on the side of a building in the park. In every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks, by John Muir. John Muir is a famous photographer, and he did a lot of really wonderful photos of Yosemite, which got everyone all excited about the national parks. So if you're wondering where he got his claim to fame, that is where it came from. Very cool stuff. All right, so I have a vertical photo here that I'd really rather not cut too much off of, but because of the fact that I have so many other photos I want to include. I need to play with this for just a second. Let's see, how could we... We could cut this one down a bit so that it is mostly just the words. Which would allow me more space for this one and this. And we could put Soren next to it. This picture is going to be overlapping something because that's just the way it's going to cut down. I only really need to see this part up here, and it's only important because we entered the park early. You can see there's not a lot of other folks there. This is my daughter right here who is running to try to get in line for what we were told was the best ride in the whole Disney California. And we didn't know how much of a line there would be, but given our experience from the day before in getting in line to try to get into Galaxy's Edge and being there super early, but still being in such a long line, we decided that it would behoove us to have her or have someone hurry to get there. So she said, I can do it. And she took off. And wait till you see the line that we ended up standing in anyway, even though we were early. Oh my goodness. But that's a story for another day. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim this up. And I'm trying to leave some of the important details like this bench over here that where you can see what we were sitting in, because Soarin' is a rather unique ride and has some really cool contraptions, I guess, for lack of a better term. Okay, let's see how much I can trim off of this without making it look awkward. I'm not usually one for, trimming your pictures to death anymore. I used to be, but I don't really anymore. So this is a throwback for me to have to figure out. All right, so we're going to start building it based on this photo in here in the corner. Building this photo collage. Again, using repositionable adhesive, so that I can rearrange these if need be. Going to keep my borders around the edge similar to the ones on the left-hand side of our layout, so that they'll look nicer that way. And I'm just going to trim this up a bit. I'm going to trim this so there's roughly a ½ inch above the lettering. I think I trimmed a little bit more than I should have, which is always what I worry about, but it is what it is. Picking an arbitrary point, sometimes you get a little bit more than you bargained for. Okay, just going to go ahead and trim off enough to give it just a nice border around the edges. And we're going to go with that. So if it makes you crazy to just cut your photos arbitrarily like I am doing right here, I'm sorry. I do apologize, but Sometimes you just have to leap, I have found. And work with it as you go. All right, so that's going to work this way. Now, how much of this do I want to cut off the bottom, or do I want to cut it off of this photo? Because I could cut, because I really like this picture, and I'm not hurting this one by trimming that industrial stuff off. Let's see. How good am I? Not perfect, but close. Maybe just a teensy little bit more. I'm not so good at the teensy little bit more. My pictures tend to buckle, and maybe I need that guillotine trimmer that everybody keeps talking about. Maybe I would have better luck with that, but that's okay. All right, so just going to go ahead and put this picture in here so that my borders here are the same. I'm going to put this picture in up here so that that border across the top is the same, even. It's a little bit deeper than the one at the bottom, so I really could shift these up just a little, probably, and get away with that. In fact, let's go ahead and just do that. We'll just move these up just a tiny bit. This is why we use repositionable adhesive, right? So we can easily just adjust when we need to. This one's not going to move up too much, but just a little. Okay. Now we have this picture over here to go ahead and get put on. And this one's going to, maybe what we should do is move this one over, and we can put this one kind of in the middle and journal underneath. Because it's still too much. Maybe I should just cut it smaller this way. All right. Working it through. That's how we work through problems, issues. I have to see things sometimes before I can think to, oh, I'm going to cover those up. Do I want to cover those up? Then we can't see the ride. If we do like that, I can put this one right in the middle. I don't like that. It needs to be smaller. This picture keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It might not end up in there. I might be cutting it to the point where it's just not going to be in the layout at all. Here, we'll just kind of turn it so we can see Emily running. And then I can journal right here. All right, I'm happy with that. Okay, so some permanent adhesive on the back. And we're going to put this right in here. All right, so getting closer. Here we've got our 2 pages closer to being done. Now we need some embellishments and possibly a journal box like I mentioned before. So let's see what we can do with that. I may need maybe a little bit of our green to just kind of make a journal box. Something that can go kind of right there. Let's see. Let's go with 4 inches and see how that looks. It's 4 inches. That's about right. I like that. Okay, but we need to take about 3/4 of an inch off of here. And we can stick that right there. So we can journal. What else can we do? I'm going to go ahead and just trim off the corners on my journal box just to kind of set it apart just a little, since it's overlapping things slightly. So that will go up here. We can add Okay, let's see. I'm trying to remind myself that I just need some things for embellishing. I don't need a whole lot, right? So I'm going to grab my foam squares. I'm going to add some foam squares to these stickers, these little word stickers. So just a couple on each end, although this one is a little bit longer, so I might put one in the middle. Okay, so we've got a landmark, adventure, getaway, and maybe we'll just put this camera on there because we take pictures of everything, right? Don't you take pictures of everything? Okay, hang on one second here. Let's see. I like these trees. So I think what we're going to do, I'm going to put some repositionable adhesive using fingers I have not used in a while on this with the stickers stuck to my tips of my fingers. Crazy town. Okay, so we're just gonna add this guy in kind of right like this so that I can journal, and then I'm just going to kind of add a couple of these trees in for our forest. We're gonna add adventure getaway. I might save landmark for another time. Let's see. Adventure getaway. Like so. Then I can journal there. We'll add the camera and this big tree over here because we've got other city type trees, right? On our seam over here. Maybe we will use landmark since I've got it all ready to go here. We'll just add it in with our tree. Our camera and landmark. I want to be able to journal a little bit down here as well about this picture. And so I'm not going to want to cover that up, but we could add something here. What could we add there? I'm so sorry. This is taking me a minute. I keep thinking I could use these mountains, these mountain stickers right here. Let's use Let's Go, because we only need something just a little, just tiny down here. Let's Go. We'll use this little road sign. And another arrow. Is she crazy? Maybe. I don't know if I can fit this on this arrow. Might be too big. Oh, it worked. Woohoo! All right. So I just want a third point for visual flow, as it were. So I'm just adding that down here to kind of help guide our eyes through the layout. Okay. So now we have our 2 pages ready to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and just add my adhesive all the way around my wallpapered paper. And this is going to go right into my book. So some people prefer to use our photo, the 12 by 12 sleeves, rather than using a blank page like I tend to use. I prefer the pages just because for the way that I scrapbook, I just have always used the pages. But if you're a sleeve type of, if you like those better, then you wouldn't need to adhere it to a page like this. You would just take this piece that we've already assembled and slip it right into your album, right into that sleeve. All right, but now I've got that adhered to my page with the hinges so that I can put that right into my album this way. And something about the black jeeping around the edge just adds a little bit of an element. Lining up the lower corner and the center edge with the jeeping, and then smoothing it out across the top, the bottom, and the side. Okay, all done. What do you think? I like it. It's just a fun kind of different way of laying something out, and I like the progressive border that goes across the top. It's kind of a fun new way of doing something. I hope that something that I did in this layout has inspired you and will help you add interest to the pages that you're creating for your own albums. And until next time, I hope that you have many more creative moments. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great day.